Okay, this is a follow-up video to my selection bias video, which I guess I'll put down in the YouTube notes below if you want to check it out. With regard to college exams, just a counterintuitive point that I just want to sort of throw out there, right? Something to think about when people say things like, let's get rid of all college exams. I talked about on the other video about how people say something along the lines of college exams don't predict academic success, therefore we should get rid of them, and why that is what we call selection bias, right? So it's a logical fallacy that people are overlooking. In this one, I want to talk about when people say, we should get rid of college entrance exams because they hurt people from low-income or marginalized communities, and how that's actually inaccurate. It's actually the exact opposite. And I'm going to show you here just quickly, and then you can sort of think through the rest of the details on your own. Once you sort of start to see the pattern, it's pretty easy to put the rest of it in order. So real quick, anytime you're getting into a college, let's say, colleges only have a small amount of items in front of them, right? So a few of the items might be just your general high school GPA, right? Something else like extracurricular activities, like do you play sports or you're in certain clubs? You might have some sort of entrance essay where you talk about the volunteer community work you did. Again, if you're in some sort of like neighborhood community clubs or athletic clubs, right? And then we have the dreaded college entrance exams. And some people say, you know what, let's just get rid of these college entrance exams because they hurt low-income or marginalized students. So let's just get rid of this, all right? So let's look at what a college entrance or selection process might look like if we only had the first four things to look at, right? So if someone has a really stellar GPA, someone does a lot of good extracurricular activities, they're involved in sports, they're involved with clubs, they're involved with community work, etc. Now we've taken away a fifth element for people who are actually marginalized or of low income in order to compete with students who might have stellar GPAs and have the time to do volunteering community work, right? There's some people who, being able to do volunteer work is like that means you have a lot of flexibility and comfort in your life. It's sort of a luxury activity, if you will, right? Let's look at someone who has like a stellar 4.0 GPA. Let's say that a student doesn't necessarily have to work jobs to help out their family, and so they're able to go through all 4 years of high school. They might work a summer job, but really the income they make from their summer job is because they want to buy, $200 sneakers, or they want to go to some sort of like summer concert, and their parents are like, look, we're paying for everything else. If you want to do this like one huge luxury thing, you got to pay for it yourself. So when it comes to working an extra job, it's not necessarily because a student needs that job to survive. It's more of some sort of luxury. So let's say that student who is living in relative comfort, let's say their grades start to drop and they go from like a 4.0 to like a 3.5. First thing that parent might do is say, you're going to quit your job. You're going to quit your job and you're going to start focusing on your homework, and I'm mom and dad here, and mom and dad, we're going to take care of all the bills because mom and dad have the money and the resources to take care of all the bills without the help of kids working on the side. All right. Kid also has time for extracurricular activities. So what we're really looking at is, a student who lives in, middle class, upper middle class, living in an upper middle class lifestyle. Parents are sort of taking care of everything for that student, right? Which is great. Okay. And if that student doesn't have to worry about anything else, that student only has to worry about school for the 4 years of school, right? 4 years of school, that student's going to have a very comfortable existence, and for 4 years, they're going to be able to put in the best effort and get the best grades and do the best extracurricular work and club for 4 straight years. All right. Now, let's look at a student who might be from a low income or a marginalized situation, right? That student might not have the type of support. So let's say that student is working an extra job to help the family with a grocery bill. That student's, let's say that this student is equally as intelligent as our middle class, upper middle class student I just talked about. All right, so they're equally intelligent, right? They're both competing for Ivy League. Now this student has a job, this marginalized student from a low income area, right? And they're sitting at a 4.0. And now, because they have to work a little extra more, their GPA drops to a 3.5, right? Now, unlike our former student, this student who's now sunk their GPA down to a 3.5, they don't have the option of quitting their after-school job because they need to help their parents put food on the table, right? They're equally as intelligent, right? They just can't get the homework in on time, so they're missing some grades because of late work. Maybe they've missed a couple quizzes because they've overslept, right? Or they're sleeping in class, right? Because they're extra tired, right? Because they have to work extra, they don't have the opportunity to not work, right? They might not be able to be involved in extracurricular activities, so they have to quit the basketball team, right? Again, we talked about volunteer work, community work. That's sort of like a luxury thing that people get involved in, something nice to write in your college essay. This student from this low-income, marginalized community doesn't have the free time to do that. So when it comes to these 4 items, right, which happen over the course of 4 years, this student who is intelligent might start slipping, okay? Now, the college entrance exam that everyone wants to get rid of and says it's so awful and horrible, this is a great thing for our student from a low-income or marginalized community. The reason it's a great thing is because this is this student's last-ditch effort to showcase themselves and say, look, I knew that I screwed up a few times throughout high school because I had a bad semester, because I had to work overtime, because my mom or my dad went through a situation where we had, something was wrong as far as finances in our home, right? This college entrance, this SAT, this ACT test, this is my ticket to show you that even though my GPA is a little bit lower than my middle class, upper middle class counterpart, I am just as intelligent as them. Give me the opportunity to perform on one test one time to show you that I'm just as intelligent as this person. And now me and this person have the opportunity to walk through the same doors of the same higher educational institution, right? Upper middle class or upper middle class student, they have the ability to just focus on homework for 4 years, right? Low income students, students from marginalized communities, they might have a bad semester or a bad year, and that gets factored into their GPA, right? They're not going to have a nice, comfortable ride for 4 years of high school. There's going to be hiccups, right? But they can take the time, but they have the opportunity one time, one afternoon, go take the SAT, go take the ACT, show everybody that yes, second semester, sophomore year of high school, your family went through a rough situation and your grades suffered. You write that out in your essay, and then to confirm that that's what actually happened, the admissions people at the college say, yeah, it looks like on your transcripts you had a bad sophomore year, but we see that you did great on the SAT or the ACT test and that you are just as qualified in order to get into the door as these other students who have perfect GPAs, right? But we understand that they're from a different community than you, right? So the only way, right, and if you also look at, the only way that we're showing sort of like merit, right, I know merit's like, people don't like that word so much, but when we're talking about like whether or not people have the capacity to perform once they get to school, the only way we can look at somebody's knowledge is through a GPA and entrance exams, right? All this other stuff is just sort of like extra stuff you do at school, right? It has nothing to do with your ability to do math, science, English, whatever, right? The only two things we have are a GPA score and a college entrance exam score. That's the only thing we know about your ability to perform intellectually once you get into college, right? And if we take away the college exam and we say no more entrance exams, the only thing college admissions people have to go on is a GPA. And again, students from low-income, marginalized communities might have a bad semester. They might have a bad school year because of things that are outside of their control. I do not want to take away another opportunity, an alternative opportunity for those students to showcase their intellectual capability to an admissions panel, right? I don't want to take away that opportunity from them because people say, well, we don't like the test. Well, if you don't like the test, the only thing people have to lean back on is a GPA. And again, those GPAs are going to be skewed based on the community you come from, based on your family background. If your family background is more stable, it has the finances to keep you afloat, you don't have to work a job, all I have to do is focus on homework and getting good grades. My family situation, my community is a little bit more dire. We have a little bit more financial stress. My grades might suffer here and there over 4 years. So I want that opportunity to take the SAT or the ACT to show you that I'm just as qualified as somebody else according to my grades and my intellectual capabilities. All right. So when you take away college entrance exams, you're taking away an alternative avenue for low-income and marginalized students to show you that they are just as qualified as students who are more well off. don't take away those opportunities, because people who are in more marginalized situations, they need as many opportunities as they can to showcase their talents and their abilities. If you only allow one avenue, and that avenue is skewed towards people with more financial stability, right? Over the course of 4 years, a GPA is that's a good way to test, a financially stable situation, right? If you just say we're only going to look at GPAs, I want students to have as many avenues as possible to show you their intellectual capabilities when it comes to entrance. And if their GPA is not working, I want them to be able to take a test, right? And if the test ain't working, I want them to be able to do extracurricular activities. And that ain't working, I want to be able to show community work, right? I want as many avenues as possible, because as many avenues as possible helps marginalized students. Now, there's a small little caveat I have here at the end, and then I'm done, right? I do think that like testing materials as well as the test itself should be free and accessible, right? So this idea of like taking like the SAT multiple times, it costs you money. I don't think that should be the case, right? So if a student from a more comfortable background can take the test 2 or 3 times, I do think those students from marginalized communities should also be able to take the test 2 or 3 times, with regard to taking the test once, getting comfortable with it, figuring it out, and then going and taking it again, all right? So that would be my caveat. But don't say we're going to start taking away opportunities for people to showcase their abilities to succeed in college. As soon as you start taking stuff away from people, then they're not going to have the ability, right? And to showcase their talents. And the same is true with like grad school exams. So the GRE, the LSAT for law school, the MCAT for your to go into med school. I say the same. Like, these entrance exams are good because, again, let's think of a student who's not a non-traditional student, maybe 24, maybe that student had a kid, right? Like halfway through college, their GPA suffered a little bit, right? I don't want their GPA to be the only way that they can show, the LSAT people that they are qualified to go to law school. I want them to be able to say, look, I had a rough semester because I was in this bad situation. I was working a couple jobs. Maybe I had a kid halfway through college. So yeah, my GPA looks kind of terrible, but let me show you that I'm able to do the work because I can compete with the LSAT just as well as my peers who might have a better GPA than I do, right? Keep these tests available because they help marginalized students who don't have the comfort of a steady 4-year situation, which is what is needed in order to have a stable GPA, all right? Keep these tests.